I'm going to show you what you can be looking for to sell on eBay from your house. Hello, my Whozits and Whatzits peeps. I am Debbie, and I teach ambitious dreamers how to sell on eBay and make mad cash. It's amazing. So you're gonna want to subscribe, keep watching, because the more you watch, the more you're going to make. Also, go stalk me on places like Instagram and Facebook. I totally don't mind. I love it, in fact. And you can also go check out my brand new website at whozitsandwhatzits.com. Go check that out. It's brand new. I'm super excited. I want you to see it. You are stuck at home and you probably need to make some money. And it's spring, so you probably feel the urge to purge. Yeah? That's awesome though, because we can take that stuff that you want to purge, sell it on eBay. So that's what this series is all about. It is to teach you where to look in your home, or rather things to look for in your home that you can sell on eBay. So let's get started with the number one thing to look for in your home, and that is fabric. Yeah, don't even try to deny that you have a stash of fabric somewhere, because I know that you do. I'm a crafter. I have one too. I totally get it. And I am not judging, but I'm just saying, you know, you have some fabric somewhere stashed away for a project that you meant to do that you haven't done. But that's okay, because now's the perfect time to go dig through it and look all of it up on eBay. Okay, there are several qualities or characteristics that drive the value of fabric, because not all fabric is going to be worth a ton of money for you, but this is how you're going to know. And I do not mean to insult you. Obviously, we all know the whole rule of supply and demand. Okay, so I'm not going to insult you by going into what that means, but I am going to go into what the characteristics of each one are for specifically fabric. Is it vintage? Okay, so 50s, 60s, 70s, that's vintage, even 80s. But a lot of people don't realize that even 90s is considered vintage. And now guess what? The 2000s is considered vintage, because by definition, in order for something to be considered vintage, that means it has to be at least 20 years old. And we are now in 2020, which means that we're in the millennium era as still being considered vintage. Isn't that crazy to me? I mean, that's just crazy to me. Is it crazy to you? It feels like it just makes me feel really old. Is it out of print? And by the way, that could mean as of like 2 years ago or last year, it's out of print. It doesn't mean it has to be vintage. So is it out of print? That means, do they not make that particular pattern of fabric anymore? Which brings us to our next one, which is rare prints. And rare prints doesn't necessarily mean it's out of print. It just means it might be hard to find. So like maybe they don't make that much of it, and so it's super hard to find. And now on to demand. Popular prints is obviously in demand. Also certain designers and brands, like for instance, Tula Pink is a pretty sought after designer brand. She's pretty well respected, so her fabrics always go pretty well on eBay. And then also material, meaning is it made out of cotton? Is it polyester? Whatever. There are certain types of material that sells better than others. And I can tell you right now, cotton is definitely a good one. Okay, one little bonus tip that I don't want you to overlook is that panels, like fabric panels for like quilts or pillows or stockings, you know, it's like the one piece that you cut out and then you stuff it or decorate it or sew it and all that stuff. Okay, do not overlook panels, because those can actually be pretty popular and they'll sell on eBay. So look up your panels. That's one of the things that I didn't put on the supply and demand, because it really just varies from panel to panel, depending on what it is and how old it is and how popular it is. You know what I'm saying? Okay, the point here is that you really just have to look up each and every piece of fabric on eBay to see what it's worth. Now, if you don't know how to do that, let's go look at how we're going to do that real quick. I've shown you before, but in case you haven't seen those episodes, let's look at it again. Okay, so let's start with looking up this fortune cookie fabric. Okay, so I go search for it on eBay, scroll down onto the left-hand corner and click on completed listings. up pops this. There's like actually only 2 completed listings here, but if you look at it, they sold pretty well. Now, if you see BTY, it means by the yard. So these people are selling it by the yard, of course. So let's go ahead and click on the history because I want to look and see how much they've actually sold of this fabric. So as we click the history, if you look right here, you'll see the price and you'll see the quantity, which means this person bought 3 yards. 3 yards at $7.99 a yard. But also don't forget that they paid shipping. So it's not really just $7.99. They also paid for shipping. So you add that in plus the 3 yards. So it really was more like a $24 sale plus the shipping. But let's look at some of these other pieces of fabric that I have, like this really cool hamburger fabric. Look, it sold for $11.99 a yard. Let's click on it real quick. Yeah, $11.99 plus shipping, but let's go see how many. See right there, they bought 2. So again, it's like a $24 sale plus shipping. But this is really one of my favorite ones. I loved this fabric, and when I bought it, I had so many plans with it, and now I don't even remember what those plans were. So I need to probably just go ahead and get rid of it. But if you look right here, it's going for like $12, $13 a yard. That's pretty good for just fabric that's been sitting around. And I know I didn't pay anywhere close to that when I bought it. So, you know, you get the point. You have to look up each and every piece to see exactly what it's worth. By the way, I would list this fabric as buy it now. If you do an auction, it just gets a little confusing, and especially if you're selling it by the yard where one person might want 1 yard and another person might want 2 yards or whatever. So I just highly suggest that you go ahead and do buy it now. This isn't really one of those rare collectible type situations that you would want to do an auction. So just go ahead when you're listing your fabric, list it as buy it now. That's my personal professional opinion. Now, everybody with the whole COVID thing knows that people have been making all of these masks, these DIY mask patterns that you can find on Pinterest, and people are making them all over the place. If you're a seamstress or you're a crafting aficionado, you know how to make these masks, and you're making them for all of your loved ones. So it stands to reason that the fabric is going super crazy right now on eBay because people are buying like even just 1 yard or half a yard. So even if you don't have a lot of a particular fabric, it's still selling on eBay pretty well. And I think that is a big reason why, because lots of people are making masks right now. So just something to think about. You could have a fortune just sitting there in your stash of fabric waiting to be realized. The profit, anyway, the money, the fortune. Get to selling. Make some money on that fabric. Oh, and if you need to know how to list super quick using the eBay app, just go check out this video. That's your next click. Click there and go watch that video. Notice I'm not saying goodbye because this is not goodbye.